Hey, this is Canada. Tim Hortons, we sipping up.
Oh man,
That there are far too many parodies of this.
I haven't seen any
Um,
parodies actually.
Have you seen This Is America Woman Edition?
No.
Because it is horrible and it is
Oh.
universally panned, and it's funny that someone thought. See, the thing about this song is that the lyrics are repetitive, and they aren't always like most of them are like they're like hidden, like the messages are hidden, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to parody. So, and the video is a huge part of the idea that
It's at least half.
at least half. It was clearly intended to be released altogether. So when you parody it, it's about America's problems and the good things and all that stuff that we'll talk about, but it's not like a song about a dude and his friends going to the gym, and then you can parody it by saying me and my women going to the club. It doesn't work that way. It's not parody ready. And This Is Canada A was the one that I also saw, which is also terrible because there's nothing to fucking say beyond Tim Hortons.
Yeah, well, especially because it's not about America. It's not about racism per se, but it's about the way the black community's been treated. I mean, it's the whole thing is black men get your money is like the chorus or pseudo chorus, I guess, depending on how you want to break the song down. But yeah, you can't just make a really simple parody and think that it's going to be funny just because the words work or because the country was switched.
I said this is about America, and then like later on you were like, this is not about America, and
It's
I was like,
actually-
yeah. I mean, the song is called "This Is America," so it's definitely trying to make you focus specifically on America.
Exactly. I think ultimately it is about black culture and black people in America.
And how people view them and
how they view themselves
and their hardships.
Yeah, how they behave, and also I think differences within the group itself. I think there's so many different messages here, and they were intentionally left ambiguous. It's not like Donald Glover would be able to sit down and say, this is what it means, XYZ, read my document, it tells you what the song's about.
He could, and he's been asked,
and he said no.
He said it's not my place.
Yeah. I really like that response.
Because I think this entire thing was more than just a video. It was supposed to spark something.
Well, it did.
It was supposed to change. It was supposed to get a conversation going, and he knew how he was going to talk to media. I think he totally planned that.
He definitely had a plan, but I just think that response is very mature. I don't think that's my place.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it before that a creator doesn't tell the viewer what the content is.
Right.
The viewer tells the creator what the content is. And I think that by saying it, it's the Inception top thing. He would be sort of telling you an absolute truth and robbing you of the opportunity to do discussions just like this.
Yeah.
But I think that's
wow.
Yeah.
Are you saying Donald Glover left an opening for us?
He did. Thanks, Don. That's the best.
At the same time, though, by the way.
Sorry.
If that...
Sorry, people.
If he did talk about it, we probably would have just done a discussion about the song anyway, along with Donald Glover's conversation. So either way, it was going to spark conversation.
It's true. I just think that there's so many different definitions that when people say what that song means, they're being slightly disingenuous, because really the title of their video should be what This Is America means to me.
Right.
Right? That those words are somewhat necessary context that are often left out.
What America means to me is probably like a public school assignment.
This is what This Is America means to me.
What did you write about, Lil Donnie? And it's just like fucking fire and dudes being executed.
Don't catch you slipping now.
That's all it says. Don't get you slipping up. Or is it in the slipping up?
Or it is, no, it's don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now.
I always thought it was slipping up.
I don't think so. I think it's just the way it sounds. Or it
Catch
could
you
be.
slipping. So slipping, I've heard before, used in context by people who actually unironically say something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with saying that. I realized that made it sound like I was saying it like it's a joke. But I've heard dudes say that if they're slipping, it means that they're they're like lagging behind and they're not doing as well as they could because they're not paying attention.
Yeah, I would have caught this a year ago, but I'm slipping. Yeah, for sure. And I think that is what it's saying, because the line is, "Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now." So
whipping meaning a car, or it's
a double meaning.
It's the car and the whip.
Exactly. It's either "look what I'm whipping now," referring to slavery, or "look what I'm whipping now," as in look at the car I'm driving. And "don't catch you slipping now" could either be a threat before you whip someone, or it could be "don't catch you slipping because look at the car I'm in because I didn't slip."
Wow.
It's like he says in his other song, Sweatpants, "Don't be mad just because I'm doing me better than you're doing you."
Right.
I think there's a ton of double meaning in this.
Do you think slavers frequently said things like that?
"Don't catch you slipping now"?
No, don't be mad because I'm doing me better than...
I wouldn't doubt it if some piece of shit said that back in the day.
That is so fucking rude.
Not in those words, but yeah. Well, the whole thing opens. So when you see him at the beginning, we just watched this video before we started this discussion, just so we'd be fresh in our heads. And we noticed that the guitar is really old and beat up. The guitar that's used. And I
probably
definitely...
from a time where people didn't have anything for music.
Exactly. Well, and also in the South, I find that that's something you see in a lot of movies and TV about the South. There's always people with guitars, and those guitars tend to be old. I don't know if that's because they last longer there, because almost anything lasts longer in that kind of a climate, because there's not as much moisture.
No, it's because fucking get beat up.
What?
Yeah, the guitar got beat up.
Yeah, but I just meant that the things I think a guitar could be 80 to 100 years old in the South, whereas you may not find that as often in the North.
I think that's Southern propaganda, brother.
Southern propaganda. Yeah. But also I think it's partly because there's a lot of underprivileged black communities where music was important, and when you did have a thing like a guitar, you couldn't just easily buy another one. You needed to keep that thing and keep it in the family. So I think there is a bit of a reference there, but the way he's dressed is really important. I noticed that his socks, his pants were only pulled over one shoe. And I was just thinking about it on this, 100th watch of the video. Everything else was thought of perfectly. So why?
That's got to be something.
Yeah, there's got to be something there, but I literally have no theories.
Something I noticed in this watch through.
What's that?
I didn't see it the whole video, but I don't think it changed. But the majority of the film, at least, or the video, sorry, has rounded corners.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that at all. I never picked up on that.
Yeah, like it's being filmed on an old like Polaroid.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That's what is so cool about this, is it feels like everything was intentional, all these little tiny bits and bobs.
They were.
At the beginning, so I've watched, just for fairness, I've watched a lot of videos talking about the meaning of this video.
Right.
And the idea was just to aggregate what other people think and honestly give me some perspective that I wouldn't have had myself.
And to avoid the really obvious shit.
Yes. I would like to point out one video. I'm not trying to hate them or shame on them or anything, but Inside Edition is a news outlet of some sort. And they did...
He did the quotes when he said news, by the way.
No, I didn't. That's bullshit.
He did, actually.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
He didn't, actually.
Fuck you! These people don't know if you're kidding!
This is the point, though.
That's true.
You don't know if he meant news or news.
Well, and nowadays,
and
it's
now
such an ambiguous
you
comment.
Can't tell whether we planned this or if it's all a joke.
And you never will.
Exactly. He didn't.
So Inside Edition did this thing, it was the hidden meaning behind This Is America. And then they had this woman sit down.
Go ahead.
For, I don't remember if it was 11 or 18 minutes, but it doesn't matter. For 11 minutes. And like she'd play the video for a little bit and then she'd pause it and talk about what she felt that it meant. But the problem was it felt like a discussion like this, but with even less...
With no person to bounce it off of as well.
Well, it felt like it had less direction.
Right.
It didn't feel like her points were concise either.
Do you think Bill Burr would have done a better job?
Well, I think anyone who sat down with all the information and compiled it properly would have. It almost felt like she was doing it as she watched the video.
I really like this video. You know, I don't know.
You know what I really think this video could use? I really feel like it needs another few more black guys in it.
I don't know.
Well, in watching all these things, one thing that everyone was pointing out, and I thought was kind of cool, the pants that he's wearing look a lot like the pants that a soldier would have worn in the Southern Army for the Civil War, because they wore gray. And he's also wearing 2 golden chains around his neck, which symbolizes a chain for each wrist. So there's a lot of
Chain for his wrist. Where does that come from?
from slavery.
Oh, really?
That's what people are theorizing.
They had chains in their wrists?
Well, and ankles, depending on.
Oh.
But the
chain. I
yeah,
see what you're
exactly,
talking about. Okay,
exactly.
sorry. I thought that was like.
No, not bling chains.
Well, some like in like I'm watching Game of Thrones right now, and like I didn't notice a lot of slaves have collars. Like not like I'm talking way before the whole collar scene. Like I'm pretty sure they have collars like.
Oh, in the first couple seasons when they're overseas. Yeah,
I just
you're
never
right.
noticed that. And it was like I thought maybe what you were saying was that they also wore bracelets that were like
to mark them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just had never heard of that.
Well, the whole thing starts after you see him with them saying, yeah, go away.
Right.
And I thought,
oh no.
What?
Sorry, go ahead. I'll share what I think after.
Well, I was going to say I was confused by that because it feels like they were never really told to go away. They were in fact not really allowed to go away during slavery.
I think that's actually a statement like that the go back to your country thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cuz I have heard that expression, like go back to where you came from.
And the thing about that is that everywhere you go, people say that. Like there's no place on earth that doesn't have racist people who will tell you to go back to where you came from. It's always going to happen. But it's become synonymous, I guess, because it's happened so much, because racism was, I guess, entrenched in American culture, that it was like, because like, back in Roman time, slaves were part of, like, the way that they viewed slaves was part of a culture, but they didn't have a way to communicate information over huge distances, whereas the states experienced that slavery during a time, racism, not slavery. They experienced that extreme racism during a time when television was becoming popular. The whole blackface thing is crazy. Imagine what we could see if the Romans had access to television and that was recorded and we could look back on them and say, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, it would be horrible.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that the go back to Africa, is that the expression that you hear a lot?
I mean, it's like they mix it up sometimes.
But I do find that ignorance, that go back to Africa where you came from, quote unquote, there I'm actually doing air quotes, I think that like that's actually been internalized by the country. African American is a misnomer.
It totally, well, I mean, it can be, depending.
But that's the thing. People tell you that is the politically correct way to refer to someone who has black skin tone. But not only is that not politically correct, that can be such a huge generalization.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that even though, there's a lot of black people in Africa, there's tremendous number of other places that black people come from.
Yes.
And the funny thing is when you see white people that are African Americans because they were born in Africa and came over here.
Yeah.
So are we not allowed to call them African Americans? Right. That whole thing is just squirrely.
I don't know. I don't know if it's really necessary to call them, like, to their face anything.
Anything, yeah.
It's unnecessary. The only real time when you would make a statement about that would be a way, like, making like a generalized statement about, in this case, a conversation about the black community. Am I offensive by saying black in trying to discuss what has happened to you? Then I guess maybe both of us are in the way of the point. If someone's gonna tell you, like, no, I know you're discussing an important issue that happened to me and my people, but you need a different word that we don't have.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's totally beyond the point.
Well, other groups are
be
generalized,
upset,
right?
They're all generalized.
Well, when you say white people,
right?
That's
a lot of groups.
No one says, "Hey, I'm a European American, you piece of shit. How dare you call me white? I am olive skin."
We are light beige over here.
Exactly.
The dark beige go over there.
I totally understand that there is racism and that terms like that get used by racists, but I think we do need to be just a little bit tolerant of people trying to do their best.
You can throw any word into a negative thing.
Yeah.
Like Einstein. Calling someone an Einstein is 100% sarcastic.
Ambiguous.
No, sarcastic.
Maybe.
Nobody ever calls someone an Einstein as a positive thing. Look at this
That's a
Einstein.
good point. Yeah.
Look at that.
No,
or
it's
apparently. Have you ever used apparently without someone thinking you were being sarcastic?
Either sarcastic or dissenting.
It's
Because there's
always-
moments where
yeah.
you're like, yeah, this is apparently what we're gonna do.
Exactly.
And even though you're not sarcastic, you're saying this is stupid.
Yeah.
But this is the thing.
See,
That's right.
Apparent, or apparently, would mean that something is obvious. It is apparent.
Yeah.
And yet you can't say it without it being sarcastic.
That
That's
is
the
kind of
issue,
weird how that
Is
works.
that, the same thing with Einstein, where you have a TV show called Little Einsteins, which is positive, and you heard the song, by the way. The only reason I know that is because it's in my Battlefront video.
Little Einstein.
Little Einsteins. I don't actually think I put the music part in there. The
No, I
rocket
haven't
ship
heard
part.
that.
We're
Oh, okay.
going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship. That's Little Einsteins.
Oh, okay.
It's a remix of Little Einsteins. Anyway, my point here is that any word can be changed. Of course, there are several words you and I won't be saying that have no way for them to be used positively. But I think in this case, black should work.
Works. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. So when
See, I hesitated even saying it there, even after we just talked about how unimportant it is in the conversation. I still reeled.
Well, that's not your fault. That's the climate.
It's society.
That really is the societal climate, though, that if you say something wrong, great example, great timing for all of this to happen. So Roseanne says something.
Oh no.
Which, let's not talk about whether it's racist at all. Let's even just assume it's racist. Let's just assume it's racist.
Okay.
She says something mildly racist because I've heard extreme racism and it
Right.
wasn't extreme
Oh,
racism.
yeah.
We all agree on that part.
Yeah.
Someone says something mildly racist and the immediate response is they should lose their job
That's yeah.
and everyone should ignore them
It's aggressive.
for that one thing. So we've been put in a climate where if you say something minor, our channel could go from 140 subscribers to 100,000 to 5 overnight.
It's a little different with YouTubers because, like, if you and I were YouTubers, sorry, we are YouTubers. If you and I were popular,
If we were good YouTubers.
I mean, those two are the same thing.
Yes.
If we were good, we would be popular, right?
Yeah.
Only good YouTubers are popular.
Right.
And we had something with like YouTube Red or whatever, and then one of us said something, and people were like, "Oh no, we could lose our YouTube Red thing." We might see a dip in subscribers, but like JonTron had a whole podcast,
That's
that could be argued racism, and he more than
Survived
recovered.
it.
He actually like resurrected like a phoenix and like shot up in the. I've never seen numbers like that from someone who doesn't regularly post, who was also at a time labeled racist. That's amazing.
That is pretty amazing. I talked about this in one of our episodes of Bros Play, but I want to say it again. If you aren't willing to ask someone to comment on
Yes.
something they said, you have no right to judge them based off that.
Yeah.
Or if you are going to judge them, you have no right to harshly hold them accountable for it. That's the big thing. You can think I'm a piece of shit. You can think we're both jerks. That doesn't matter. You are entitled to that opinion. But you're not really entitled to go online and tell everyone that we're assholes and give false information that makes us look bad, which
Yeah.
happens all the time. As soon as there's a minor thing, people would rather be upset than right.
Wow. See, the Roseanne thing really bothered me because the people who had, like, there were, like, news stations. I did the quotes, by the way. That was real. I did, like, a raptor, too. That was.
I could
like,
actually hear the quotes in your tone of voice.
They were, like, the top person at, what is it, ABC?
Yeah,
He
ABC.
was like, the top person at ABC is, like, a CEO who is a black woman, and she's the first black. And I'm like, you brought race into a conversation about whether something was racist. Like it's like if you're sitting there talking about slavery and in a room full of white people and there's one black guy and he's not speaking and you go, well, how do you feel about it? And he's like, why the fuck would I have something to say about it? Right? It's like you're singling somebody out for something they don't want to be known for. This CEO wants to be known for what she accomplishes, not for being the first black CEO.
Exactly.
That's not
She may also be the first female and the youngest, but
Sure.
no one. I mean, I don't know what
Yeah.
Probably not either of those things.
Yeah.
But she could be, and people would totally overlook it for that other thing,
Well,
right?
if they have like, if they speak to anybody about it, you'll know that like most people know like the first of everything, but not necessarily care about them. Like I think a lot of kids probably learn about the first president, and then like, the first this president or whatever like that. But like, do we remember that president for a good reason? Like,
no.
Most people know the name of the president who died after like how
JFK after.
No, it was like it was like 36 days.
Really?
He got sick and died. It
wasn't Andrew Jackson, was it?
I don't know what it was, but people know that guy's name, but not for the right reason.
Yeah, just because of that one particular event.
Yeah.
Well, I think most rational people can agree that race doesn't really matter in a day-to-day basis. If a black person or a white person, well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter in the real practical world. If a white person walks in or a black person walks into your store, what?
Interesting. It only matters if it matters to you. It only becomes an issue if one person says it's now an issue.
Yeah, because
it's like entirely in the head. It's entirely.
I think one thing that really hits it home is that culture is so much more important than race.
I was going to say the same thing. That's what people mistake. Like
yes, people associate the two as if they are necessarily combined.
Well, I've seen characters before who will be like really racist, and then they meet someone of that race that they hate, and they say, you're not like the other ones. They don't change their opinion. They just say you are an exception to the issue.
They assume it's an exception.
Without changing their mind on that. Maybe it's actually a culture that they have a problem with.
Yeah.
Which isn't an issue, as long as you stay away from them. There's plenty of cultures I don't like, but I don't want them to go away. I want them to be in their spot or whatever it is, and then I get to be in my spot, and I get to do my culture.
But I even think there are obviously those exceptions, but even in a broader sense, look at black people from Jamaica, who often, when someone has a thick Jamaican accent, it may be one of the hardest accents to decipher, I find. Because it is so...
It's also a dialect, too.
Different. That's true. It is a bit of a dialect.
They throw a lot of... they have a lot of words.
The same way some European countries are speaking English, but they're not speaking English.
Oh, Irish people.
Yeah.
Have you seen Irish Twitter?
No,
it's one of the funniest things ever. It's just like, yeah, boy, and it's like spelled. It's
mostly Y's and S's.
It's slang spelling, the way that we would say something like, because you would be BCU. Like they do that, and they put down where it's like, this blah.
Man. So there's a good example. The difference between an Irish person and a Canadian.
Yeah.
The difference between someone who comes from South Africa and someone who comes from Jamaica.
Well, even England or Britain and us, who are like very close. We're not that far off, like as far as like people who have lived together.
Here's a really good example of how culture is much more important than what we call race. Even though race literally is a construct. When we refer to races in evolutionary biology, every single human on Earth is one race, as far as evolution is concerned. Right? There's minute differences between them, but there always is in species. That's just the way it works. But look at regular Canadians. Look at English-speaking Canadians and French-speaking Canadians.
And we live pretty close to the border, and there's just a giant difference. Like
you drive across that border, the roads fall to shit. You start seeing separatist signs all over the place. It's just a different world. And it's not because of our race, and it is not because of our lineage even. No. It's because of our cultures.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's something that people always pass over. But
it's about... That's a great example. I really like that example. It's also...
It's close to home.
It's close to home, which I like. But like, you can even go... Like, the difference between speaking to people in the city and speaking to people who live in like tiny towns.
Areas.
Like, I don't know, what's a small town nearby? Like, Aurelia is pretty big.
Well, let's not talk too specifically about where we are. You're the one that doesn't
we've already discussed like we're like close to Toronto. That's not an issue.
There's a little town called Schaumburg, which is like north of Toronto. So you go there and it's
like a road.
Yeah, it's one main road, maybe two main roads intersecting, and then a couple little suburbs built in that area. You know, people refer to the creek as the Crick, and it's a different type of life. I forget. I've heard this many times. I've never looked into it myself, but evidently, if you look at places where there's high populations, people talk faster and walk faster.
Because they have less time.
Places where it's very, very small, there's not very many people tend to walk slower everywhere they go. They tend to speak very slowly. And a good example, like Joe Rogan's the one who keeps saying this. That's why I've never looked into it. I just keep hearing him say it. But he pointed out just purely culturally, you can tell. If you go to New York and you ask somebody, hey man, how do I get downtown? Okay, you can take the L up 3 stops, and then you want to get out there and move on to the N line and take that up 4 stops. You know, but if you go to Alabama and ask a guy, hey man, how do I get to the next town? You're not from around here, are you?
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking for the next town, you want to go out to the main road, take a right at the main road, and you follow it for about 7 or 8 kilometers. Well, miles, sorry.
Oh, shit.
Cultural differences.
Oh, no! Racism!
So let's go back to the actual
we haven't
video
about,
here.
Yeah, this is America. This is not America, brother.
But we got all that out of the way. We got all that stuff. That's our base. Now we're going to go into the video.
just fucking pretend I didn't just shitpost on that.
Hey, man, you can shitpost wherever you want as long as you pick it up and put it in the appropriate receptacle.
Imgur, what do we call it?
Imager.
Wow.
So let's just start off with the first shooting, where he shoots a guy in the head.
Right. Exaggerated pose.
The pose that he's taking is very reminiscent of Jim Crow.
Right.
If you go and look up, and I
haven't found it. I actually didn't look that up.
Oh, really? Because there's a very, very classic Jim Crow position where he's standing with his legs spread and he's got one arm forward and one arm back.
Why?
Were they? It was a poster that was made, and the poster.
Oh, I've seen that
show. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That poster, that Jim Crow poster, is almost the same pose that he takes, except for he obviously has his gun armor.
But what I mean is, why did they depict black people that way? Was it a way for them to try to continue to hold them down after they were illegally no longer allowed to? Is that was that the point? Because they were exaggerated, right? They were definitely not given any respect in film.
Yes, and that is definitely why. If they wanted to represent black people the way they are, they would have put on black paint. But what they did was they put on black paint, and then they have, like you said, those exaggerated huge white lips and all these different odd features. And then on top of that, when you watch things from the Jim Crow era, they behave in this really strange way. Because they're trying to imitate what the white people thought black people were like. They thought they were strangely expressive. They thought, for a while, thanks to William Randolph Hearst, people thought that marijuana was making black people rape white women. Right. So there was so much misinformation that I think that was it was a literal caricature done in stage version.
Huh.
And it's obviously super, super racist.
Wow.
Which I think is why he brings it into the video.
It's beyond
It's beyond racist.
I don't even know. I think it needs another term for it, because it's
it's gross.
Racism is it's like a thought and feeling. That is a full-on action with the intent of bringing down a culture of people.
Honestly, I think that actually might be hate crime.
That's actually probably
Jim Crow
in the direction. Yeah.
Yeah, that might actually be hate crime.
Why was it called Jim Crow?
That was his name. That was one of the first guys who originated it. That's what pretty sure he called himself.
What?
As a black man, he would become Jim Crow. And then there was a whole bunch of laws that were made that were called Jim Crow laws.
I remember that.
I also advise caution when you go to look up Jim Crow, because you will find a lot of really dark shit that goes along with it just because of the era.
Well, a couple of things that aren't that dark that are kind of funny. There's in Dumbo. That's the elephant film. That's the right name, right?
Yep.
He meets a group of crows who are very exaggerated as depicting black men. And guess what one of them's named?
Jim.
Yeah. There's also
Oh,
a Dragon.
Walt Disney and your subtle nods.
There's a Dragon Ball Z character who, for a very long time, actually, I think they changed this. So when Dragon Ball Z was in Japan, he had blackface. One of the characters had blackface. Yeah, yeah, just straight up.
What?
I don't think it
Sorry,
was
this
ever
is an
in...
animated show, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they had a character
Yeah.
who was white,
Yeah.
but dressed up in blackface.
Well, you know how like
they animated that.
Yeah. You know how like
What?
Sorry, no, he's not dressed up in blackface. That's what he looks like. Like you know how
Oh.
characters in Dragon Ball Z are like they're all humanoid, but they look very different.
Yeah,
right?
one's purple.
One
or
of the
pink,
characters.
sorry.
No, the purple one used to be black.
Really?
Yeah.
Is
And,
that...
and then when they brought it to the Western culture, among many things like putting underwear on women, they changed his color scheme.
Wow. Because they didn't
Yeah.
think people could handle it. And I mean, honestly, let's face it, they couldn't.
Apparently in Japan, like they don't give a shit about racist stuff. Like they still do stuff like that.
Yeah, but they also. Oh, sorry. I was going to say something about China. Well, because in China, they don't care about copyright at all.
Right.
You can, yeah. But it's true that era, or that side of the world is very different. Like their game shows tell you everything you need to know about the differences between us and them.
Dude,
Here, if someone gets hurt on a game show, that is the end of the game show. There, if someone gets hurt, it's the start of the fun.
Dude, in Japan there are women-only subway carts because they are
so
so
they don't get groped.
Well, yeah, they're so packed in that you are touching people whether you want to or not. So if you want to, there's nothing someone can do. They're like stuck in there
To stop you.
So there are female-only carts just to create a,
actually makes a decent amount of sense.
Yeah. Oh, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. Because there's actually people who get paid. I don't know if it's Japan or China, but there's people who get paid to push people into the subways so that they all fit.
To cram them.
Yeah, can you imagine? Because we live in a world where if it was standing room only, some people might wait for the next train.
Yeah.
Imagine being in a world where you are very willing to be that guy that is being pushed on in order to consolidate the rest of the people in the train.
Dude, there's like rarely ever days where I have to move my backpack from the bus.
Yeah. We just live in an area that has so much space.
Yeah.
You know, we really do live in the heart of the world right here, right in Ontario.
I wouldn't say it's the heart. I think that's actually why it's not jammed up.
Oh, you're right, actually.
The heart would be like, I don't know, New York or DC.
You're right. That's a very good
because
point.
Because the heart is a space where everything is coming in and out constantly. Whereas like you and I are like up in like the hand. You know, it's a nice place. It's an airy place. It gets warm. It gets cold.
I guess what I really meant is I feel like we're in the cradle of
Some
the
people
world.
caress it.
You're weird.
It gets hand cream. It is soft. But it is also used for strong things.
I think your analogy is falling apart in all kinds of
Actually,
ways.
I think it's doing better.
So when he shoots that guy, before and after...
Oh, Jesus, we're like 30 seconds in the video.
He's making all this really weird motions. He's like throwing his shoulders forward,
his
and he's
face.
grunting, and he's closing one eye. And that is definitely a reference directly to the Jim Crow portrayal of black people, because he's being a caricature of himself. And you find that he never stops. It's not like he's crazy at the start and normal at the end. It just slowly grades towards somewhat regular behavior, but it's still really a caricature throughout the whole thing. And so he starts to walk in, and I noticed that he keeps looking back once his dancers come in. So his dancers come in, and then he starts to walk away from them, and he keeps looking over his shoulder to see them, to see that they're still there. And I thought, is that supposed to be a comment on how distracted we are these days? About how he's in a video that is perfectly choreographed, and yet, why is he looking at them? He's supposed to be looking at us.
I think when he's talking about distractions, there's actually a part, right, like, as he's talking about being distracted, what does he say? Like, how's the line go? We don't want the money. We just want to party.
Well, it says, we just want the money just for you. We just want to party just for you.
Right.
Well, what it also says in there, it says, dance and shake the frame.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out that could mean Like dancing could be the distraction, and shaking the frame could be what we do when we don't like the reality of something.
Right.
You know, someone doesn't like this news story, so they just throw another news story at it so that the old one gets forgotten.
Yeah.
Right?
So sorry, back to what I was what I meant to say there. The distraction part is that he's talking about I don't know the fuck he's talking about. But he's dancing in the front and you're paying attention to him because he's so strange. His movements are very strange.
Yeah, throughout the whole video.
And there's stuff going on in the background of basically every part of the video.
And it accelerates.
Intended to be missed on your first try. That's like in itself supposed to be like a demonstration of how something ugly is happening in the background, but you're paying attention to the entertainment in the front.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the dancers behind him are supposed to represent. I mean, I got this from some other video, but it's supposed to be the characters are following him. They are supposed to represent black culture, the accepted part of black culture, but only as long as it fits within the parameters America has decided it's okay to be part of.
And that's part of why he was looking back at them for approval.
He's checking on them.
To make sure that they're still with him.
Yes. And they're never hurt.
Those individuals.
All of them are never hurt, and they are always happy, but exaggerated happy. It really hit me this time we watched it.
And as soon as he closes his eyes, they run away.
Oh.
The instant he closes his eyes, everyone
bails. Runs away.
Yeah.
So as soon as America isn't looking,
no one wants to be anywhere near it.
But one thing that I really loved about it is that the dancers have such exaggerated happiness on their face. It's like they aren't there. It's like they aren't paying attention to what's happening. I think that's the point.
That's a good point, yeah. They are totally oblivious to what's going on behind them, or at least they're repressing their reaction to it.
Exactly.
Because a guy falls from a second story.
Yeah.
One guy rides a horse with a bag over his head. There's riots.
They're also dressed in the clothing that white people made people wear in their like new white schools.
Dude, that's so true.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. They're all dressed in that particular way. And that's always what you see for those commercials that used to ask you to donate money so that they could build schools. That is exactly what they were wearing.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it's more about black culture and black struggles than it is about them in America. I think it's more saying this is what America does and this is its influence on others. Because there's a South African dance move that they use halfway through called the Waka Waka or something like that.
Is that the one-footed thing?
Yeah, that like one leg thing, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that had become popular before the video. Because I'm pretty sure that was actually also intended to be sort of like
this is what we do.
Like a meme being thrown into the video, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's also part of the...
You can do that dance in Fortnite.
Oh my god, of course you can. That's part of the confusion of all this is that this video doesn't have one message. It doesn't just say America's great, America's terrible, black people are great, black people are terrible. It doesn't say any of those things. It just says these are all things.
I'm careful.
All of these things.
Take that little bit about you saying that.
Earlier in this video, I said if you take something and are not willing to give someone a chance to give comment, you have no right to judge. I will say it again.
I mean, really, if someone's like, man, this Derek guy is a fucking racist, and then they show you just one bit, and they're like, yep, he's a racist. That's really not the person you should be trying hard to convince because they're not willing to even think about it for a second. Because if someone showed me that, and they were like, look, this fucking guy's racist, it was like one clip, a second clip, I'd be like, what?
What comes after?
Where was that from?
What came before? Yeah. And you just start it up, say black people are bad, and then just leave. Yeah, but no, I agree. You create sound bites nowadays, and anyone can just take that audio, turn it into whatever other sound bites that they want.
Sweet can.
Oh my god. So they're also pointing out. When I say they, I mean everyone who's done a video about this. They're pointing out that when he shoots the guy, he takes the gun and gives it to someone who grabs it in a red cloth, which may or may not be a reference to the Republican Party. I don't really care.
But that's not a bad. Actually, that's not
bad. They
bad.
chose the color for a reason. Everything in this video was chosen. But what's more important,
is Was red the red was the color of the South, wasn't it? During the Civil War.
Gray. It was gray and blue.
Wasn't their flag red though?
Well, the Confederate flag has blue and red on it.
Right.
But I wouldn't say it's primarily red.
But red is its color. I would say red is the color that stands out.
Probably, yeah. It is definitely the highlight of it. It's what brings the flag together.
Maybe both.
Well, and it's also obviously the color of the Republican Party, which has a tremendous amount of support in the South. But what's really important about that scene is that the gun is put in a cloth and taken away by an individual whose job seems to be handling the gun, whereas the body is literally dragged away.
It is, yeah.
And then later on, when he shoots that whole choir full of people, the gun again is handed to the guy whose job is just to care for the gun.
Yep.
And I don't know if that means that we care more about our guns than we do about our people, or if we spend more time focusing on guns than people. But I think both are true.
I think it's a statement about the people who would hold the cloth, that they would have more value over it.
Well, and there's individuals in this world that would be willing to hold that cloth, even though obviously in reality there'd be dead bodies there. Yep. And you'd be more concerned about that. But
also, nobody reacts to any of the death in the video
at all.
Not one bit.
They just drag it away and move on, and the dancers come in and start dancing.
Yeah.
I think that callousness is intentional for sure. And it's the very beginning of the disconnect between the background and the foreground.
Yeah.
Right? Because actually that break in the middle where it does cut to the choir is almost like a reset. It makes you think, oh, okay, we've gotten past
we've moved on.
The dirty, grungy, like, don't catch you slipping up.
Also,
slipping now.
I didn't pause for that reason.
Well, I don't know where I got these lyrics from, so they might not even be right.
The door he comes out of into the choir room blends in with the rest of the wall.
That's true. He does just kind of appear.
Do you know the only famous door that blends in with the wall?
No.
It's in the Oval Office.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's an interesting reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm pretty sure that's right.
Well, it's definitely not the only one. It may be the most famous.
It's the only famous one.
Yeah. But also, I don't think that's a thing that people would get excited over in order to make things famous. Imagine if someone said, here's a place where the door blends into the wall. You would skip to the next post instantly.
Oh, it's not. It's multiple doors. It doesn't have any normal doors. The Oval Office.
What?
Yeah, it only has those weird wall doors.
Oh. That's not a bad idea. To confuse intruders, to give more points of exit.
I think it's to make it more oval. Because flat doors don't fit well on ovals.
I think they fit perfectly fine. You just have to design your building well.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think Obama would spend 8 years.
Obama. As if he had anything to do with the White House.
He did.
Construction.
You didn't know that?
So Obama is also a time traveler.
Oh.
And,
No, he's not a time traveler. He rewrote history. It was never an Oval Office.
He rewrote history. Yeah. It was always circular. Yeah. And then he got in there and he went oval.
No, it would be like oval. No, wait. I can't do just one syllable or two syllables.
Oval?
Oval? Stand before you here today.
Oh my God.
Tell you that.
So he goes on to
flat
say,
doors in the Oval Office.
We were talking earlier about the don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. But then later on he goes to say, don't catch you slipping now. Look how I'm living now. So there's 3 possibilities for what that could be. 2 possibilities for what that could be. I thought I had a third, but it was bullshitting. So it could be, look how I'm living now that my life has exploded and I have all these things. Like, look how affluent I am.
Oh.
Or it could mean, look how I'm living now that I'm emancipated. Now that I'm a free man.
It could be about Donald Glover.
It could
say, look at me.
But he has so many songs about him. Why would he write this one about him?
It's not about him. Just that part. Like, just that one line.
Just that one line.
But he's saying, look at me, part of a group that at one time was a slave. Now, in the very high top percentage of the world, with
that's a good point.
Of influence and money and general success. Look at me now.
And that's, I think, really prevalent because there's tons of people from the black community that are really high up.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people have arguments about whether they're representative or not, but the point is that you're right. That would never have happened, ever, during the time of slavery. And now you do have these people that can, what do you call that, social mobility. They can mobilize to higher levels.
Educating white people. Can you imagine going back and telling them one day that could happen?
Well,
how fucking crazy that would sound to them. Because they didn't believe it would ever end.
Well, and why would you?
And they never, I mean, if you want absolute control over people in that way, you can't act as though it could end. You have to have like full iron fist control. It's like the scene in Django Unchained at the beginning when the two dudes with the horses have like, I think it's like 4 or 5 slaves all chained together. And they talk to them, like they talked about them like they're nothing.
Like they're monsters.
And the second that the one guy is in a position where he is now in danger, he's like, no, he's like, we were all cool, man. Like, he was like,
I shared my snack with you.
He's like, yeah, one of them's called like Butterfly or something, or it's like a name that's clearly designed to like make you feel like a pet, right?
It was given to him.
Yeah, he was like, oh, butter snips, like I gave you my chips the other day. Like the second it changes, he realizes how flimsy that was. It was a gun between the two of them that held everyone else together, was chains and guns.
Yeah, and that's
and the
it.
second that was gone, there was actually nothing stopping those men from doing what they wanted to do. And that's how you had to operate if you wanted to. If you want, even the Romans.
That's why slavery never made sense at any point in history, other than if you want a, free workforce.
Well,
because there's no moral argument for slavery ever at any point in history, because you can just say, what happens if we weren't holding them down? They would just be free people.
Well, the other thing is that with slavery, almost always they outnumber the masters. Almost
Usually,
always,
yeah.
Like the Romans, how many do you know? Because I
no idea.
I thought they mentioned it in Spartacus.
How many slaves?
Yeah, but in Django they mentioned that there's like 3 times as many slaves as there were masters.
And that makes sense because you're bringing in large workforces to work on huge areas of land.
Yeah,
you're gonna need people, right? Yeah, it's just a really dark time. I love this one interview with what's that?
Back then was a dark time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said it was a really dark time.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You know who Anderson Cooper is, right?
Remind me.
He's
Trem Anderson Cooper.
Yeah, Trem Anderson Cooper. Different guy, totally different guy.
Same guy. Go ahead.
Wait, am I thinking of the right guy? Anderson Cooper, the reporter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trem Anderson Cooper is a parody version from a Starbomb song.
Oh, okay. Because I thought they were talking about isn't one of OJ's lawyers something Cooper?
Oh,
okay. Because I thought that was a totally different reference. I guess I missed that.
Looked into.
Anyways,
I haven't thought about OJ Simpson since the last time I watched Naked Gun.
That's bullshit. Because you haven't watched Naked Gun in a long, long time.
It's true.
We've talked about Naked Gun since then.
I don't think that's happened.
But anyways, I mean, after calling you on your dirty lie. Anyways, Trem Anderson Cooper had an interview where this guy was telling him about his ancestry, and he said, so in your history, one of your ancestors was a slave owner who was actually murdered by his slaves. And Anderson Cooper just goes, good. And I laugh the same way you're laughing right now, because you don't expect someone to so casually denounce someone from their own lineage, but it's true.
I think those who own the same way.
Yeah, those who own slaves were terrible people. They may have given birth to a wonderful lineage of people, but they themselves were still terrible people.
Well, like, you keep going back. We have ancestors from Italy, Ukraine, England. Like
some of those were Romans.
You keep going back, and eventually they were at least part of a society with slaves. Not necessarily slavers, but probably associated in some way.
Yeah, you keep going back far enough, and at a certain point, we have no idea what happened 6,000 years ago. I almost guarantee you there were slaves in some part of the world.
Well, yeah, I don't really care about them. Like, I don't care about, like, 7 generations ago. I think it's great that you got me here, but, like, I don't think that 7 generations after me should thank me for, like, getting them further.
Well, I think this is maybe this is only a good way to put it for me, but you can sometimes be walking on hard ground, and underneath that is soft ground. but because the top is hard, you can still walk on it.
Right.
Even though there's terrible things in the past, once you get a certain amount of generational difference, whether that's 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, eventually there's so much cultural change that has occurred that you're right, that sort of becomes irrelevant, or at least it becomes irrelevant from a perspective of apologetics. You don't need to apologize for something that you didn't do. What you need to do is recognize what those actions mean for now.
Right.
Because all we really care about is now. Even if people are upset about what happened in the past, it's usually because of what that meant for the generations down the line and where they ended up now. For example, in Canada, we have issues where First Nations people were treated terribly in some of the early years of the country.
Dude. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the individuals aren't upset as much that they were treated poorly, but more so that this treatment happened, and then those people became impoverished because they were not really allowed to have anything.
Right.
So now there's this trickle-down effect where now all of the ancestors that come after them have been affected by that moment.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think we need to consider, but definitely not from the perspective that we are apologizing for something that our ancestors did, right?
I would say you shouldn't even hold
That's the sins of the father.
Exactly. You shouldn't even hold them responsible for their parents.
Which
they will be in the court of public opinion.
You know who holds people's families accountable for stuff? The fucking mob. That's...
I was going to say Badiatis, but go ahead.
What?
the son is never free of the sins of the father.
Okay, well, yes. But no, those are the groups of people that hold families accountable.
Right.
Criminals.
Right.
North Korea. Those
Right.
are the people that hold the family accountable for what someone else does. So obviously that's not a behavior we want to do. Back to the video. When he shoots all those people in the choir,
Yeah.
notice that, so he walks in and he's so excited.
He is.
He's got more energy than the rest of the video combined.
Yeah, he what's the word? I don't even know what the word is, because he like dances with his feet. He's
like sideways moonwalking.
It's like his feet are snakes. He's just like slithering across the floor.
And he's snapping his fingers and he's so happy. And then as soon as he gets to the camera, there's no anger. It's apathy. It's not that he hates the choir. He just doesn't give a fuck if they live or die.
Right.
That's really more what it is, because even after he kills them, he doesn't care. He just hands the gun off and moves along. Now, something I hadn't even thought about until this very second. Do you think that could partly be commenting on how many antidepressants and dissociative drugs are used in the States? Because to gun down that many people without changing your facial expression,
it could
does say something.
But that one really mimics the church shooting,
an actual massacre.
Yeah, I think that's probably closer to that. But it could be. Maybe it could be about. This could be a conversation meant to spark conversations about other conversations.
Well, it is, because I'm asking, could this mean this? The answer is it means everything and nothing at the same time. It's all about what we choose to attach to it, right?
I think more than anything, the intention with this video was to spark a conversation,
generate discussion,
to continue that conversation beyond the jokes and the memes and all that stuff, and beyond the let's go into detail about the video like we're doing right now. Where he wants random people to just be, have you seen this video? Like, oh my god, it's crazy. That's the first wave of people just being like, what does it mean? He's got Civil War pants on. But give it a little time. It's already at 288 million views. It could continue to create more conversation. I think that was the intention. Was not so much for him to make a statement, but get other people to make
statements of their own.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting idea.
Because, it's
the fuse, not the explosive.
Yeah, it's the Spock. There's definitely a certain number of people who would take what Donald Glover has to say and say, wow, what a great point. But maybe he understood that not a lot of people, maybe even in comparison to the amount of people in just America, that's not a lot of people that would actually take his opinion. Maybe the intention was to get a whole bunch of people who believe in him to go out and continue to speak to people that believe them.
And even just to get people to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many things that divide us, and I think that this video is something that might divide certain people.
Absolutely.
But it at least brings them to the table, which is something that I find is happening less and less nowadays because there's so many easy opportunities to find your own echo chamber on the internet.
Well, also, I look where you're going with that. Nowadays, the people affected by a comment or a statement aren't the ones talking about it. It's other people who think they should be offended for them.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people. We've talked about the Speedy Gonzalez and how he was depicted. He is depicted as a Mexican, and people were upset about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who are like, I'm Mexican, and I love this because he isn't depicted negatively.
He's just Mexican.
That's the problem. There's like an Adam Sandler film, Jack and Jill, where Mexicans are exclusively depicted as lazy and dumb and like just it's awful. That's the type of thing that we should be getting upset about because it depicts an actual group incorrectly. Getting upset that Mario wears a poncho and a sombrero in Odyssey is not a thing to be upset about because he's just wearing the clothes. He's not being depicted.
Well, it's because he's supposed to be Italian, Mario.
Sure. He's
he's
a plumber who barely uses pipes.
That's a good point, actually.
In a world...
Yeah. He's a plumber who goes inside the pipes.
Constantly changing.
I think if a plumber came to your house and next thing you know he was in the pipes, you'd probably fire him and get a new one.
He jumps on mushroom heads.
That doesn't sound good
In
either.
Odyssey, he goes to different kingdoms. Like, they're basically universes where there are realistic-looking people. And
what do you do about the people that just want to be mad?
He's not... Nothing. You let them be mad. You let them fucking scream into a circle of people screaming at each other.
No, but these are the same people that will get Justine Sacco fired from her job when she lands after a plane ride in a really bad joke.
That's the thing, though.
You can't just let those people loose in the world and hope that they don't come after you.
You fired isn't really the correct statement because they weren't the ones that did it. It was the people who had the job, like the one who took it from her.
That's true, but you also have to remember that if you are a public relations firm, which I'm pretty sure is what she was, she's part of a PR firm. If all of a sudden the whole world is going to hate you...
Well, that was a bad move on her part. Maybe she got her fired.
Well, ultimately, she was playing with fire because if you are in a public position, doing something publicly is playing with fire. Same with Roseanne.
Right.
She apparently was on Ambien and drinking alcohol while tweeting. Not a great combination. You wouldn't even want to speak to people on those things.
Okay at all, in my opinion. Like,
well, evidently, what I've heard about that is that she didn't actually even know that the woman was black because she saw a picture of her that made her look like she was like a dark-skinned Italian. Because...
See, the thing is, I didn't really find her tweet to be, like, quite racist. I mean, it was definitely in, like, the direction.
It wasn't a good tweet.
It also wasn't funny.
Yeah, it wasn't funny.
But what, like, I could see where the joke was. It was like the first version of it. It was like a thing you'd write on a napkin where you're like, later I'm going to make this into something funny that isn't offensive. You know, like
you can figure that out.
Like Tosh does that. Daniel Tosh does that. His jokes are offensive.
A lot of shock humor.
Anthony Jeselnik has very offensive jokes, but they pose them in a way where you can understand where the comedy is coming from. This Ambien tweet was so basic that it sounded like an actual, just a thought that came out of someone's mouth. And without any context, and with it being in text form, I totally see how it blew up that way.
Well, also part of the issue is that some people just want to get on the bandwagon.
Right.
Because really, this is the reaction to that tweet that people should have had. Weird. They should have just said, this is weird, it's not really funny.
Well, yeah.
I don't really...
When I found it, I went, oh.
Yeah, I just think someone should have just tweeted and said, are you okay?
Well, the issue is that I was, I heard about it, and then I went and searched it up, and it was, all the articles were racist tweet. And I think...
That's the thing, they put it in their headline,
too. I think a headline should never actually be a statement like that.
Well, what word could you change?
I would.
What word would you put instead of racist?
You wouldn't need to put anything.
No,
there.
there's one really easy word. Super easy.
Controversial?
Yes! Yes!
That's the thing, though.
Because it's not racist, it's
doesn't-
controversial.
It doesn't even need to be the word. That's like it's like a.
Well, no, but you need a headline.
It's a moot statement. You can say Rosie O'Donnell fired over tweet. That on its own is intriguing, and it fits into the byline or the
but
headline
she wasn't
better.
fired immediately. That's the thing. A lot of these articles were written immediately. Like they were written in that instant aftermath before anything really happened. But actually, no. As far as I understand, it was like within an hour or something they had like canceled the show.
But that like before it got canceled, and she said some weird thing. Is that really news?
Oh, dude, anything's news these days. But the problem is when you say Roseanne tweeted a racist tweet, scroll to the bottom of the story to read the tweet. So now people are thinking, oh man, well, I'm not going to scroll all that way. She must be a racist.
Exactly.
So if you put the word controversial, people are going to say, let me make up my mind. You can even write in your first sentence, tweet that was construed as racist. You can put that in your first sentence. You cannot put that in your title. That is inherently deceptive. But we live in a world where you're allowed to be inherently deceptive, but you're not allowed to be racist. We live in a world where now you are not allowed to be racist in the privacy of your own home. Well, you're not allowed to do that anymore.
Maybe let's change that. It is better to be definitively misleading than it is to be ambiguously racist.
I guess so, yeah.
You will do better if people might think you're racist than people knowing
you're lying.
You are actively lying to them.
Lying is so prevalent these days that people are not surprised in the slightest. People aren't even partially surprised.
I can't do it.
What, lying?
Yeah.
Being disingenuous?
It's really hard. Like, what I mean is, like, I'm not good at it, and I have, like, a gut feeling right after I say something that I know isn't true that I almost always immediately talk about. That's like the awkwardness of bros play, is that I'm like constantly trying to like make sure that what I said was interpreted correctly because I feel like I was disingenuous.
I feel like a lie is like taking the bottom block from a Jenga tower and putting it on the top. There's not necessarily an issue with it immediately, but it degrades the integrity of you. So the more you do that, the more likely your tower is to come toppling down on your head. The more lies you tell, the more likely you are to walk into the office one morning and someone says, I need to have a chat with you. Or you wake up one morning and you check your Twitter.
Interesting. I guess in that way, I'm sort of disingenuous in every workspace I've ever been in. Disingenuous as to who I truly am. There's like a very watered down, refined version of myself that I present at work that I would never. Yeah, interesting. I suppose you could consider like a lie of omission to be a technical thing, but that's like every single person basically.
Yeah, and I think most people,
except for
that's
Roseanne.
what we call white lies for a reason, right?
Oh no.
Oh no. Do those have to be North American lies now?
Are they? No.
No, that wouldn't even do it. What about lack of pigment lies?
Whoa. I was gonna say.
We call it that? What about eggshell lies?
Wow.
Does that work better?
What about offset white lies? I was gonna say, are they white lies because
Battleship Gray lies?
Because white people think that their lies are less like harsh.
That's a good question. I don't know where that originates from.
Because there's no other version of lie. Like there's no other color in lies. Like there's no.
Yeah. I don't really know about
any
that
other term that goes along with lies?
What do you mean?
Like a white lie is like a something lie. Is there any other term? I don't think there is.
Yeah, not really.
We don't call them mean lies or harsh lies.
Yeah. Like there's lie of omission like you just said, but
interesting.
There's one expression that I like to keep in mind when it comes to thinking about how honest a large group is being.
Mm-hmm.
When I say a large group, I mean like a corporation or some sort of big entity. Himmler. Himmler. Anyway, Himmler, I believe is his name, was Hitler's right-hand man in the propaganda stream. And what he used to do is his idea was that people are way more likely to believe a big lie than they are a little lie.
Right.
Because individuals tell little lies, so they believe that little lies could be told. But individuals generally don't tell big, huge lies, which means it's easier for people to say it must be true. No one would lie about this.
I've heard that so many times. The amount of times I've heard someone say, "Why would I lie?" and I want to fucking slap them. I don't know. All the benefits of lying.
All the benefits. That's a good way to put it.
Everything you could possibly gain from pretending to be something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why would I lie?
Yeah. I understand that expression in certain situations, but for the most part, it is a little rhetorical.
Yeah. Well, it's also like on the occasion where it's been like pouring rain and someone offers me a ride home. You know what they always say right after that? I'm not some sort of creep. And I'm like, creeps can say that.
Yeah. So you walk into a restaurant and you see this sign that says "Bread definitely not dropped on floor." Does that make you more comfortable or less comfortable eating at that restaurant? Sometimes saying less can have a much greater effect.
Oh my god.
So
see, I knew that was what you were gonna say, and yet it was still so fucking funny.
So you know that part where he talks about the cell phone being a tool, right?
Yeah.
He says, this is a celly, that's a tool. Some people speculated that could be a cell block and that they could be talking about incarceration of black people. Maybe, but ultimately we're looking at cell phones. He says celly, he holds his hand up to his ear. But even more importantly, the thing he does right before that, he says, I'm so fitted, I'm on Gucci, I'm so pretty, I'm gonna get it, watch me move. And he does all these various actions while he's doing that. All of those are things that we do on social media. Every single one of those are things that you would see someone say, would be associated with a picture, would be part of someone's sort of current outward persona.
Interesting. So in this moment, he's speaking as someone else.
Yeah. I'm so fitted. I'm so pretty. Like, he's definitely not him.
Huh.
He's impersonating all these different people who you'll find out on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. And then he says, this is a celly, and that's a tool, which I think is obviously a double-edged sword. It's a tool for doing great things, and it's also a tool for creating great hardship in the world.
It can be.
Like anything else in this song, it really is super ambiguous. But I also noticed that he says, this is a celly, and then he says, that's a tool, and he points up.
Right.
And I was thinking, what if he's talking about the users being tools?
I think he is. It's the people watching.
And I didn't think about that at the start. I thought the cell phone was the tool. But
Right.
really, you're the tool sitting there looking at the cell phone.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they're all watching him through their phones and not watching him.
Yeah, that is so common these days.
I love it. There's a photograph of like a single woman in the middle of like just a field of people with their phones out, and she's just watching the thing.
Yeah.
And like, I realized the other day, because I ran out of data, and so I had nothing like to check on my phone on my break, and I was just like going through old photographs, and I was like, I don't have any photographs. Because
On your phone.
Yeah, there's like barely anything on there, because I don't ever feel the need to capture something because I'm there. Like I'm never like out of the moment enough to be able to go, this is a great moment, I need a photograph of it. And I, in some ways, kind of wish I had more photographs, but also like, what if those tarnish the moment?
Yeah, the great moments for a photograph is, oh man, I can't believe I'm seeing this thing. Here, let me snap a picture of it. And you pull out your phone, you snap a picture, you put your phone away, and the thing's still going on.
Arguably, though, I probably like the other day, we all went and walked on the waterfront with Dad, and it was wonderful. And I was like, let me take a photograph, because I thought it was a nice moment. But that was like an hour into it. It wasn't like, it was like something that I thought of like way into it.
And snapping the photo did not distract you from the thing.
Right.
Right.
Because it was organized. I asked you guys to be part of it instead of actually just taking a photo out of nowhere.
Even then, you're not detracting from the walk we're taking to take a photo. The real problem is when there's some sort of miraculous thing happening before you and 4 people have their phones. When really there needs to be one designated guy. If some cool shit goes down, Greg, you get your phone out, because I know you have that cool double tap feature, and you record it. I saw this one video of, I think it was, let's say 5 people on a boat, and a seal jumps into the boat. And then they start feeding it, which is not a good plan. But anyways, there's a seal in the boat, and there's a video. And in the video, there's 4 or 5 people standing around, and only one of them doesn't have a cell phone. Everyone else is recording the seal. And the top comment was, "Look at that asshole actually enjoying the moment." And it's such great irony, because he's the only one who's really going to take a full account of that home with him. Everyone else will get a partial digital account and a partial real account of it happening.
Imagine if one of us had to film Bros Play.
What do you mean?
And just how out of the moment we would be, focusing on keeping the camera perfectly on the film. The only reason why we get that genuine moment out of it is because it's always recorded without us thinking about it, and we get into a moment. But if we had to physically touch something to make sure the camera was still working, it would really distract us. In fact, I'm frequently distracted during the show because I'm making sure the things are still recording. Not that it would make any sense for it to stop recording. I still need to check it.
Yeah, it's just you have to.
There's plenty of moments where you're saying something and I'm like, yeah, for sure. And like later
checking
on,
dials.
later on, I'm like, fuck, god damn, it wasn't
I do that on the phone sometimes.
But there's the balance. In that moment, I detracted from the moment to make sure the moment was captured.
Yeah.
And like 100 times 1 out of 100 times, it's necessary.
Well, here's a great example.
We almost lost the God of War session.
Exactly.
Because I just like had a feeling and checked it, and we were in like megabytes on the hard drive, and the whole session would have been lost if I hadn't done that.
Yep.
But there's like 700 Bros Play episodes that didn't get corrupted by that moment. So it's I mean, really the thing, this isn't really a good example actually, because you can just say, well, you probably should have just checked it ahead before the session, which is totally true. But the point here is that like the balance is very difficult, and maybe that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, it really is about the balance. And when he goes to the next scene, the final scene, where he's got all those like old cars.
Balance. They're actually hanging their legs off of the platform. One of them actually might be on the railing. I can't remember.
I don't think one of them's actually maybe sitting on the railing. But
anyway,
yeah, I don't think balance is the big
I
thing
think
there.
it was actually the main point of the video.
But when he goes to that final scene where he's standing on the cars, I don't think it's him, but someone says, "America, I just checked my following list.
Yeah.
And you motherfuckers owe me. Owe me." He feels owed because people aren't following him. That perfectly describes our modern social media bearing society.
Interesting.
You owe me because there's not enough of you that are following me. Not, I didn't earn it. You didn't give it to me.
Wow.
And then, just to put your mind at ease, when he's dancing on that car, they actually put like that skateboard grip tape on the car. You can see it if you watch the video.
Oh.
There's actually a strip on like the trunk area and a strip on the top. Huh. So he's actually standing on something that he can grab, so he's not gonna slip off and die.
I actually was very.
You were worried when we watched it.
The first time I watched it, because I was thinking like the camera is panning so far back that there's no one even close
within 100 feet
to be able to help him. That if he like fell off of that car, that he could hurt himself. That's one of those like suspension of disbelief moments where it's like, I'm just focused on like the practicality of recording this because I'm always looking at that angle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and because that's sort of the side of the world that you're in, right? You're on the other side of the camera a lot, so you think about those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to put your mind at ease. And then the final scene, which I think is probably the one that everyone knows the least about.
Well, I think it's because it's pretty overt. It's not. There is some symbology, but not as heavy as the rest of the video. What I love about it is how long they keep his expression hidden.
Yes.
Even though there's nothing obstructing it. It's
you
just
can see
light.
His eyes and his teeth.
Yeah.
But you cannot tell that he's distressed.
And his when you can just see his eyes, it just kind of seems like maybe he's doing okay, like
it looks like he's just running, so he's exasperated.
Yeah, he doesn't seem in distress, and then you start to get a sense that he's in distress, and then his full face is shown. And I'm pretty sure they use an effect, like an After Effect thing, to actually like bring his face from like dark to light really quickly to like almost
So
like
you can see the features all of a sudden.
I meant to surprise you, to suddenly be like, no, what you were watching is actually terrifying.
Yeah, and then that's when people start to appear behind him,
Yeah.
chasing him.
And they're ambiguous, which I like.
They're ambiguous, but
are they white?
They're all kinds, but the real important thing is that they were all going about doing their own business, destroying their own little world, and leaving America alone. And then eventually things flipped somewhere, and now America is on the other side of that. I think that is what the end is supposed to be. If you push too much, if you think you're invulnerable, if you think that you can be totally separate from the dark and dirty parts of the world, it's just not gonna go on forever. Eventually that will catch up, and I think that that's what the end of the video is supposed to be.
Wow.
But there's also some words. Have you ever like heard any of the words in that?
No.
Yeah, because they're so hard to hear. So he says,
they're all echoey, aren't they?
Yeah. He says, you just a black man in this world. You just a barcode A. You just a black man in this world driving expensive foreigns. You just a big dog. I kenneled him in the backyard. No, probably ain't life to a dog for a big dog. So that is probably the most confusing part, because it's not meant to be a song the way the rest of it is. Right. It is meant to feel like an outro. It's meant to be a little more rap, I find. But it's really clear what they're saying there. They're saying that, so first of all, being described as a barcode means you're not unique. We don't put barcodes on unique items.
Well, each individual item is sort of unique, but in all in the exact same way.
Well, that's what I mean. We don't put a barcode on every individual Ming vase created in the Han Dynasty.
I don't think they put barcodes on Ming vases.
Exactly, because they're unique, precious objects. Wow. We put barcodes on boxes of homogenized material.
Did you plan that?
Kind of.
That was weird. You played me. Just like
Set
America.
Him up and knocked him down. And I think kenneled in the backyard probably is a direct reference to slavery. I assume.
I like the when he says big dog, which is a positive term for someone being powerful or successful, but still a dog. Interesting.
I also think that it's interesting that he says kenneled in the backyard probably ain't no life for a dog. And I think that could go to, that could really be grafted over anything. Whether you are kenneled in the backyard by your spouse or your job or the place that you live, whatever it is, if there's something that is chaining you up and holding you down, it's not the life for you. And I think that it could either be a direct reference to slavery, or it could be a reference to any one of a million things that holds you down and keeps you back.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Good job, Dong Lover. This was a great song. It was a great video. The whole thing was so well composed.
What I liked about it is that the warehouse is essentially a three-dimensional canvas. It's so empty that the first time I watched it, I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know I was gonna, like, because I've been a fan of Gambino's rap for a long time, and then he made that album that was like, I don't even know what the word, like the genre. You've heard Red Bone,
right? Yeah, I don't know what genre to really call that. It was almost like reggae? No, not exactly, but...
No, but it was like, he sings, and he's got backup singers, and it's like, it is not rap.
It's good.
But it's it's very good, but it's under the same name, and I didn't really listen to that album, and then hadn't heard anything from him in a long time. And then this song comes out, and it was like, when I saw it 9 hours after it came out, and it already had like, it was like 16 million views. It was like, it blew the fuck up.
Jesus.
And I went into it believing it was just another music video, and I was very underwhelmed by the music. Found the visuals to be quite interesting, but the second I saw the warehouse, I knew everything in this was going to be symbolic. I knew nothing that happened in this video was going to be a literal statement about something. It was all going to have a meaning. And I didn't really understand its cultural significance until like several other people were like, have you seen this video? And then I asked Dad if he had seen it, and he had seen it, and I was like, this is
Okay.
reaching far.
Yeah, it was #1 trending for like 9 days or something like that. Yeah. And that's a huge deal because YouTube is a massive platform. So to be the #1 trending for multiple days in a row, that means YouTube is throwing you in front of everyone's face. You're going on most people's homepages if they haven't seen the video yet. So yeah, he reached a lot of people with that one. And I think that was the whole point.
Yep.
He wanted to generate intrigue, and he did. I just don't want to feel like we're capitalizing on his success the same way everyone else is. Because that Inside Edition video that I was talking about was quite honestly slapped together. The whole point was because they knew people would click on it.
Well, first of all, nobody checks in on an hour-and-a-half video about a 3-minute song.
But you'd be surprised simply putting the person's name in there.
I meant to like continue that.
Okay.
Like, not a lot of you're not gonna get popular.
It's not common
making an hour-and-a-half video about a 3-minute song, right? That's not the type of people that watch the video you're talking about.
True.
So, but also I know how you feel because I realized today that I make Siege content, I make Let's Plays, I make podcasts, and now we're talking about This Is America. I feel like every other YouTube,
every other YouTube channel, yeah. Yeah, it really does seem like that.
This, like, if I were to tell somebody today that didn't know it, we did a podcast, and I said, tonight we're talking about This Is America, and they'd be like, of course you are. But it's like, no, look at their catalog. There's, like, nothing in there that anyone else talks about on YouTube. This is, like, you even mentioned it to me when you said, I want to talk about it. I was like, really? And you're like, I know that everyone talks about it, but I just feel like it's important to discuss, and that's I like that.
Well, I just want to make it clear that I brought this song to the channel because I think the combination of the song and the video are just captivating. I want to say that this song is probably more powerful and more made more of an impression on me than Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Even though I think Paradise by the Dashboard Light is probably more appropriate for me because I'm a young man. So being, hearing this story about what happens when you choose love too young should actually be like super relevant for my life. Whereas we don't live in America and we don't deal with most of these struggles.
Yeah.
So like most of this is irrelevant to us personally, but I feel like culturally it's super relevant. And every time I watch the video, I just kind of finish it and I just revel in how awesome the choreography, the music, like you said, the fact that everything in that warehouse was planned.
Yeah.
Nothing is accidental. Nothing just showed up on set, right? Every single bit of it was choreographed and made for the song. Something about that when the visuals and the music really sync up, it hits my dopamine receptors in a way that only drugs do.
That's why I do that so often in Mitch show.
Yeah, exactly. That's why your Mitch shows are so awesome when they start because it just gives you this juice at the beginning. You just feel like, all right, let's do this thing.
It's like when you play, like, I used to play, I don't know how you pronounce it. I think it's Comanche. It's by In This Moment. It's a real, like, fucking, like, song. Like, you just get, like, actually, that's actually, like, one of, like, the guy hits, like, the toms, like, bum, 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 bum. And I used to play that on my way to work when I, like, didn't like the people that I worked with.
To get you jazzed up.
To get me fucking jived, to, like, get ready to fucking deal with this bullshit. Mm-hmm. I was like, it's war! And that's, like, the combination of music and video. It's why music videos have just continued to be made. It's like there's so many fads from the time when music videos started that don't happen anymore. That combination of those two things is so perfect. It hits music on its own already kind of hits two places in your brain, the intellectual side and the emotional side, and you throw the visual element in there, and then you time things really well, and
timing
it comes together so fucking well. In fact, it is so easy that my first Mitch show didn't even have the song it was designed for.
And it works.
And it still works because your brain wants to connect everything it sees. So you put music and video and layer them together, and your brain just makes it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with this song. I thought #1 trending. It's called This Is America. Everyone's talking about it. It's probably just going to be one of those things that I just don't give a shit about Because quite honestly, the things that are really popular in popular media, I never care about in the slightest. Because they're always either not interesting, not relevant, or just generally overblown. But I felt like this wasn't overblown at all. This deserved all of the attention that it got. And I think that's super rare today.
Yeah.
So you know what? Good on you, Don. You did a damn good job, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So keep cooking your bacon. Thank you for joining us in this discussion of This Is America by Donald Glover. Please join us next time for Artemis Fowl.
Whoa!
Yeah.
We barely talked about the song.
Yeah, we did.
It was like half an hour about a song.